Following is a paid commercial program paid for by Gabe Voss. The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the host and guests, and not necessarily those of the station or management of WETR Radio.
Good day, everyone. Today we're going to cover the history of Aliens and Aliens Predator universe, circumstances surrounding their rise in popularity and why it occurred. We'll also briefly cover some of history on the development of technology leading up to making these awesome films cultural icons. We will be covering substantial swaths of information here in each of the three segments, and everything will be available on alienslegacy.com for your listening pleasure if you miss a part or all of a segment. A little history on the progression of gaming, electronics, and why Aliens and Predator are icons amongst things. In perspective, in the 70s and 80s, there was a hotbed of electronic and cinematic development. In 1962, Space War was developed as the first video game, and a clone of it was made by two students at Stanford on a PDP-11-based machine. On July 11th, 1962, Telstar 1 was launched and relayed phone and video through space. Also in 1962, Philips released the compact cassette tape. Planet of the Apes is released on March 27th, 1968. In 1969, a crew from Bell Labs developed Unix on PDP-7. In 1972, Pong comes out from Atari, and the first arcade sports video game was born. In 1972, the VCR was brought to market, and in 1974, Taito releases Speed Racer featuring sprite graphics and a racing wheel controller. In 1975, Midway Manufacturing releases Gunfight, the first arcade video game to use a microprocessor or allowing for improved animation and graphics. In 1976, Sega releases Motocross, which featured haptic feedback, causing the handlebars to vibrate during collisions. On April 1st, 1976, Apple Computers Incorporated was founded. In 1977, Cinematronics releases Space Wars, the first vector graphics arcade game. Star Wars was released May 25th, 1977. In 1978, Taito releases Space Invaders, the first blockbuster arcade video game, responsible for starting the golden age of video arcade games and sets the template for the shoot-'em-up genre. In 1979, Atari releases Lunar Lander, the best-selling Atari game of all time. In 1980, Data East releases the Deco cassette system, the first standardized arcade platform. Before then, it was just a mishmash of different standards. Williams Electronics releases Defender using the 5 buttons and a joystick. In 1981, Atari releases Tempest, the first color vector arcade game. In 1982, Namco releases Pole Position, the first game to feature a 16-bit CPU. On February of 1982, Intel releases the 80286, or as we know it, the 286 processor for use in AT computers. In 1985, Atari's last arcade title, The Empire Strikes Back, is released to arcades. On July 15th, 1983, the NES and the SG-1000, or the Sega Genesis, as we all lovingly know it, were released, starting the console wars. In 1986, Chiller by Exidy is released, notable for blood and gore. In 1988, Narc by Williams is released and is the first commercial game to use a 32-bit processor. Namco releases Splatterhouse, which was the first game to get a parental advisory disclaimer. In 1990, NAM 1975 was released by SNK and is the first arcade to run on Neo Geo hardware that became the standard platform throughout the early 90s to early 2000s. The Aliens 1990, 4 years after the release of Aliens, arcade boasted a Celeron processor and a VGA output connector. Aliens Armageddon, released 1993, boasted a Pentium 4 processor. Aliens vs. Predator, released 1994, was built for the CPS-2 arcade game system. In 1998, Konami releases Dance Dance Revolution, creating many sequels and spin-offs. Karaoke and its variants really took off in the 80s with the advent of the compact disc, or CD. Now, Up until the 90s, a set standard for connecting buttons and accessories did not exist for the thousands of arcade titles on the market today. This left arcade managers in a bit of a pickle with older, underperforming games and no way to replace or upgrade them if something breaks or if they need something new. There are literally 100 or so different types of system boards used in arcades since 1972. Then Japan come out with their JAMA standard. JAMA stands for Japan Amusement Machine and Marketing Association. JAMA introduced a connection wiring standard in 1985, and by the 1990s, most new arcade games were built to the JAMA specifications. The only exception were gun games which required some extra connections to interface guns as a controller via a light sensor on the arcade screen. To this need, the JAMA Video Standard, or JVS, was created and became a mainstay standard in most all 90s era arcades. Worth noting here is that until the 1980s, gore and violence was so fake and unreal that it was never a concern, but as processors and video resolutions became vastly improved, things achieved a level of realism that it caused alarms and concerns amongst parents and the various groups with calls to ban video games. The best answers for parents is to read the ESRB game ratings and not to provide a rated M for mature game to, say, a 6-year-old. Parental involvement in entertainment choice and play is always a best policy. Please research the game your child wants to play before you let them play it. What you find and may learn will surprise you. The 80s was the era of games and movie merchandising, and this movie genre was not too terribly different. Some of the 80s-style arcades for Aliens and Alien are sought-after items and can easily sell for $10,000 or more for some of the newer cabinets, say Aliens Extermination, as they are great attractions in retro arcades, which are starting to make a huge comeback, as some younger folks are discovering that maybe our childhoods were not quite so boring after all. Arcade titles included Aliens, 1990, Alien 3 The Gun, 1993, Alien Armageddon, released 2014, Aliens Extermination, released 2006, Aliens vs. Predator, 1993. There were numerous console titles as well, along with PC games and a few of the new iOS, Android titles as well. Many of the titles released are now available in retro game consoles. Aliens has a slew of merchandise you can buy from Etsy, Kenner, NECA, which is the National Entertainment Collectibles Association, eBay, Big Bad Toy Store, and other fellow collectors and artists. In 1979, Kenner released a 2-foot posable alien doll that bombed as it was complained by parents to be too scary. Kenner did a re-release of toys in 1992, lasting for 3 years with a total of 27 figures and 4 vehicles being released in Series 1 through 4. In 1997, Toys R Us had a 2-pack of Aliens vs. Predator sold as the Aliens and Predator 10th Anniversary gift set. KB, in 1997 and 1998, produced a 2-pack of Aliens vs. Corpix, which was so successful that in 1999, 5 new packs were created of Aliens vs. Marines. They also released a whole new Aliens Hive Wars line. Kenner in 1999 released 6 figures of Aliens and Predators that were not produced in the original line. Why are there so many collectibles nowadays? First, let's go back to 1969, where Bernard Loomis, working with Mattel, developed the 30-minute show Hot Wheels as a means to promote the toys. In reviewing things, the Federal Communications Commission, FCC, determined that it needed to be treated as advertising, forcing the show to be taken off the air. He then later moved to Kenner Division of General Mills. Reading about the upcoming Star Wars films, he positioned the company to produce movie-based toys, including the term introducing the term toyetic to Spielberg. They made over $100 million on annual toy sales following the release of the film. May 25th, 1977. In 1980s, the FCC changed the rules on children's programming, allowing cartoons and shows to market toys through characters, props, items in the show. Top examples of this were Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Transformers, Batman and Robin, and Star Wars. There's a good note here regarding Star Wars. George Lucas insisted that he would keep the merchandising rights before the first film was released, and 20th Century Fox, underestimating the film, allowed George to do so. The film turned out to be a toyetic phenomenon This toyetic phenomenon almost spelled disaster for LEGO in the early 2000s when they misjudged the market for Star Wars between film year releases, and in light of that, they built their own movie cartoon brands, including Ninjago, LEGO City, and Bionicle. In 1988, Dark Horse released a serialized series of comics and continued to periodically release titles in the Aliens and Predators universe. Dark Horse was known to run licensed properties based off of movie franchises and had comic serializations including Aliens, Predator, Terminator, and other great sci-fi hits. There have been numerous crossover comics including Batman, Superman, Judge Dredd, and even Archie. Right now there's a reserialization of the original Alien 3 script that covers what happened to the Sulaco, Newt, and Hicks. There's also numerous novels set in the Aliens and Predator universe. Unfortunately, with creativity, as it were, not all books would fit into the canons of the universe, so some will sometimes list the books as outside of the canon, ignore them completely, or create a separate list for Aliens, Predator, and Aliens versus Predator. Aliens and Predators will always sell, so there will always be more figures, movies, comics, books, fan films, cult references to come out. If you throw in a comic book serialized by Dark Horse in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s and beyond along with the books, Terminator and Predator are connected as well. Look for the omnibus volumes if you're wanting all of the prints in the series in one nice big book.
.3 and AM 760.
The secret side of me, I never let you see. I keep it caged, but I can't control it. So stay away from me, the beast is ugly. I feel the rage and I just can't hold it. It's scratching on the wall, in the closet, in the halls. It comes awake and I can't control it. Hiding under the bed, in my body.
Okay, welcome back everyone. This is segment 2 of our Aliens and Predator universe. So far, we've covered the development of electronics and film and the toyetic phenomenon that skyrocketed during the 80s and 90s. Now let's go over the film universe of Aliens and Predator. Scott Ridley first started with the movie Dark Star in 1974, trying to make people laugh, and failing that, he said that if I cannot make them laugh, I will make them scream. And to follow that, the movie Alien in 1979 was born with the help of the art of H.R. Giger. See the book Necronomicon to see some of his work. This film was Sigourney Weaver's first big role and actually propelled her acting career as she was the first female hero to have the big showdown against the bad guy. Her next big role was in the iconic film Ghostbusters, released June 8, 1984. Alien is considered one of the best films of all time, and in 2002, the Library of Congress selected it as culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant and added it to the National Film Registry. The most memorable tagline coined from this film came from the copywriter Barbara Gibbs, in space, no one can hear you scream. Alien sequel a few years later, Aliens, released in 1986, was a crowning achievement with the work of Scott Ridley and James Cameron, writer and director, and a cult classic. Empire magazine voted it the greatest film sequel of all time. It won 2 Oscars, Best Sound Editing and Best Visual Effects. Entertainment Weekly described it as the greatest pure action movie ever. Cameron had just finished his production of Terminator, released in 1984, and Fox had waited for him to direct Aliens as they liked his script so much that he wrote while he was tied up waiting 9 months on Arnold Schwarzenegger to finish up on Conan the Destroyer before he could work in Terminator. Fox loved the script, so they actually waited for him to be free to direct the film. Note that this does not normally happen. Cameron sought in the creation of the polymorphic enemy, the xenomorph, to mimic the ever-changing tactics seen in the Vietnam War, and arguably the whole movie is an allegory to the Vietnam War, as that is what was still fresh in everyone's mind. To this effort, we can be thankful as it cemented a plot and an enemy that will forever captivate an audience, not to mention the ingenuity and common everyday items used to build all of the awesome special effects and props seen in the film. Although some of the props did not actually function, they looked like they did. The artwork of H.R. Giger assisted greatly in making a terrifying enemy and a movie as it was literally from his nightmares. Full Metal Jacket was also being shot at Pinewood Studios, as was Frank Oss's Little Shop of Horrors, that was in an adjoining studio. Noted when James Remar, initially cast as Hicks, accidentally shot a live round damaging the set next door, with the remark from Al Matthews, Apone, "Where the blank did you get live ammo?" Filming took place in an abandoned power station in London, England. It was Acton Power, also used in the movie Batman, where they found significant portions of the hive still intact. One of Cameron's first fights at Pinewood Studios was that he was used to non-union film crews, and the Pinewood Studios crew were union, and there were issues with the 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. tea breaks, and the belief by staff that to get to the top, you'd buy your dues and putting in your time. Note that the quality and the artisans on set did was outstanding work, and that this was before craft services was a big thing on movie sets, so that times were the only times folks got to eat. This created substantial strife as there were fighting personalities, cultures, as Cameron had a very tight 75-day shooting schedule, blowing up to a near mutiny, with Cameron having a meeting with the whole crew to have them air their grievances and an agreement to let them have their 2 times for tea. The delays with the clashing cultures, although settled down, and eventually made for some very tight production schedules. And the strife, tight schedules, and drama with the set staff created the opportunity with Cameron's hard work to make a film for the ages. Predator, released in 1987, was just as iconic and arguably one of the best performances seen with Arnold Schwarzenegger. This film set the stage for the science fiction and is argued to be one of the best action movies ever committed to film. It was also the only movie that opened starting out in a helicopter. Stan Winston created the iconic Predator suit for $1.5 million after a different company failed to make a good suit everyone was happy with. This was to be worn. The original suit was to be worn by Jean-Claude Van Damme, as was felt that his martial arts acrobatics would add to the realism of the Predator. This Stan Winston suit was worn by Kevin Peter Hall, who was 7 foot 2 inches tall, and Stan Winston's suit was 8.5 feet tall and weighed over 200 pounds, requiring a bungee rig to move believably. In perspective, me standing 5 foot 10 inches tall, weighing a lean 180, I was called a baby Predator in comparison at Fanboy. The film had the second biggest opening weekend in 1987, losing out to Beverly Hills Cop 2. As was the case with Aliens, there were issues during production, but this time they were the natural kind. Venomous snakes and scorpions invaded the set during filming, and water purification issues at the hotel being used, causing dysentery for everyone. Plus, during filming, Arnold marries Maria Shriver, and after the wedding, she spent a couple of days on the set in Mexico. The crew decided to prank the newlywed by placing frogs in their shower. In Predator, Dutch, a.k.a. Arnold Schwarzenegger, was the template for the Terminators and was put on ice sometime after the movies. In Predators, he had a daughter that was snatched by the Predators and taken off-world to be hunted. We know how that ended for the Yautja, a.k.a. the Predators. Cyberdyne Systems got rebranded and was renamed as Hyperdyne Systems, that we discover about in Aliens. That is the employer for the character Brooke. In the new Predator film that just came out, they did not cover the partnership that the humans and Predators had that also sheds light on how the movie Predator came to be with all the humans on an alien world. Much of this is brought to light in director cuts of Alien 3, Aliens, and the comics. Predator 2 in 1990 had mixed reviews, but tried to capture the same emotional and human element the other films had, thanks in part to Danny Glover, Mike Harrigan. Arnold said no to this movie as he did not like the script or the director, stating that the shooting in the city was a bad idea. The sequel was not planned, but after the success of the Predator comic book series, Fox was easily convinced to greenlight the movie. Ironically, this set the stage for the Marvel franchise and other comic films to get released in the following years and decades as studios tried to cash in on the fandom, interest, and audience. Alien 3, released in 1992, showed how adaptable the xenomorphs were and actually led to the alien resurrection, where Weyland used Ripley's corpse as a base for genetic experimentation. Worth noting is that the poor fan reception of Alien 3 almost ended the career of producer David Fincher, as he was so strained on the production that he was the only movie director in a 4-movie franchise to do a director's cut due to all the chaos. Alien Resurrection in 1997, Sigourney initially refused to do the film until the studio drove a figurative dump truck of money into her house, $11 million. Winona Ryder was another actress cast in the film and was eager, as she was a big fan of the Alien and could work alongside her idol. Due to cost, the final scene of the film could not be shot in Earth-based scenes, was shot in the Betty instead. This was also the only Alien film shot outside the UK. Sigourney insisted on not leaving California for shooting as she wanted to be near her daughter. Another notable was that the special edition, when number 8 refers to the company, she is told that Weyland-Yutani Corporation had been bought out by Walmart. It was not as popular with fans as it reopened the storyline closed in Alien 3. Aliens vs. Predator in 2004 and Aliens Requiem 2007 showed us the hunt and the games that the Yautja Predator has with their xenomorpho and how we are just distractions of the core mission. Predators, released in 2010, captured the hunt and showed us what happens to the daughter Dutch eventually has. The film was shot in 53 days. It was intended to be part of the Predator franchise. Written by Alex Litvak, the original Predator script was written by Robert Rodriguez and was turned down due to cost, but was resurfaced as Fox searched to redo the franchise. Alien 5 was canceled to make way for the release of Alien Covenant. The prequel Prometheus was hoped to be one of 3 films that were meant to be prequels leading up to the movie Alien. This was the last film H.R. Giger worked on, as he died from injuries relating to falls in 2014, not from the film. Alien Covenant 2017 showed us what happens to David and Dr. Shaw. What we did not see was where they discovered the engineer planet, and David, in an act of love, sterilized the engineer home planet. David again experiments, and we have a good view of the evolution of the aliens. Due to the buyout of Fox, there are questions on whether the trilogy will be completed. This movie did not perform as well as could have been hoped. The Predator, released in 2018, was meant as a reboot for the franchise and tried to recreate the energy the original Predator had. There were a few alternate endings, one including Ellen Ripley in stasis, another Dutch. There were also some cutscenes that included the underground base where humans were working with the Yautja that would have given a better picture on the origin of predators and why the fugitive predator acted the way he did.
The views and opinions heard on the programs, which air on Talk Radio 92.3 and AM 760, are those of the hosts and guests of those programs and not necessarily those of the station or management.
Okay. Welcome back, everyone. This is our third segment. We've already covered the development of electronics, toys, and movies. Now we're going to cover the fandom of cosplay and the fan group known as Aliens Legacy. In perspective, dial-up internet access was king until the late 1990s. Starting around 2000, high-speed internet came into play, giving a whole area of growth for websites, and around 2000, social media websites started to supplant forum software and bulletin board-based websites in use since the 1980s, like what we use on alienslegacy.com. AOL Instant Messenger launched in 1997 and quickly replaced IRC, created in 1988. IRC stands for Internet Relay Chat, along with other instant messaging services such as Yahoo Messenger, MSN Messenger, and others. MySpace launched in 2003, followed by Facebook in 2004 and Reddit in 2005. AOL shut down their messenger platforms, as has Yahoo, in late 2018. Right now, there's a lot of debate going on over who is going to replace Facebook, as there's an exodus away from the platform, and somewhat arguable, multiple platforms are popping up to fill the need and desire. With the slow trend away from social media, there's also a rise in folks moving back to using forum-based websites that encourage information sharing and discourse without censorship. Forum websites that have stayed around throughout the entire rise and ebb of social media giants continue to be a thriving community for discussion on a myriad of topics. The sites that remain since the beginning have continued to have a strong core following and active contributors with top-notch admin teams running them. From the captivated audience was born the United Kingdom Colonial Marines, UKCM, costuming group. This was founded in part by Paul Maitland, and he established the beginning part of the United States Colonial Marines in the United States when he immigrated to the USA. Sometime around the 90s, L. Myers Folly cosplay group with Spad Octan building some armor sets for some fans, and the United States Colonial Marines eventually formed, who still have a large presence at DragonCon every year, and other parts of the fan group attend conventions in costume the world over. We are always trying to grow the group so new members will always be welcome, and we will always have help available for costume questions. The forum site we use was first founded by Dan in the late 90s as he was using it as an aliens archive to document his collection builds, and was taken over by Tony a few years later as he lost available time to maintain and grow the site. Around September 7th, 2003, we had our first major revision to the website by Mike Rush, and it has remained unchanged since then. We've always had great administration on the site, and we try to contribute to the Facebook page with anything related in the related universes of Predator and Aliens when and where possible. Our forums are at http://alienslegacy.com, and our Facebook for the Americas are at http://facebook.com/the-USCM. Now, you can also not say aliens and not bring up Terry English, who made the iconic armor set you see in the film. You may remember him from another film where he made the armor, Excalibur, released in 1981. His armor sets are highly sought after, and a full set of reproduction made by him for about $3,000 US. To put things in perspective, an accurate Civil War costume with all the accessories can set you back $6,000 US at a minimum. Spat Octan of Spat Cave also makes a slew of replica props for Aliens fans. You can order his online at spatcave.com. Master Chef is also another purveyor of props with his site on chefscreations.co.uk. Those are the best sites we have found for props. There are other sites such as Golden Armor, but substantial post-processing work is required to finish purchases from them. Necatron Props was another source, but he has since retired from the trade. As far as building your own props is concerned, we have multiple resources on the forums at alienslegacy.com. Common everyday items were used and incorporated into the building of props, from a Kanko 423 drill body for the motion tracker to a German MG42 for the M56A smart gun to a Thompson with an underbarrel shotgun for the pulse rifle. We are also similar to the 501st in some ways. Those are the Star Wars folks you see in costume at conventions all the time. Due to the wider breadth of films and roles, and the costume requirements entirely depend upon the nature of the event and what the venue will require. A movie premiere might have specific requirements versus a general convention that would not have many, if any, restrictions. Above all else, we support individualism, harmony, and diversity, a theme that echoed throughout the Alien and Predator universe. Okay, this is my friend Richard Esparza. I've known him for over 10 years, and we're just going to answer some questions and talk over some of the universe.
Thank you. Good to be with you today, Gabe. So what's been the most intriguing part for you to head up this group? What's been your passion about it?
Well, I've always been a fan of Predator and Terminator and Aliens. They're probably my favorite go-tos next to Ghostbusters.
Okay.
Trying to recreate the technology and make it real life has been the real challenge. A lot of the information really isn't out there, and you're having to get bits and pieces all over the place, just trying to figure out how they made it work.
Okay. Well, so you've told me about a gun that you recreated, I think?
Yeah. That's an airsoft replica that's fully functional.
Okay. And so do you use it quite often, or just kind of for show?
I use it from time to time. I keep it in a storage in a case. I'm still trying to sort out how I'm going to safely store it so it doesn't accidentally fall down, because it is about a $3,000 prop.
And which gun is it from?
It's from Aliens. That's the vest-mounted gun that Vasquez and Drake were using.
The one that is huge and
yes,
no human could actually hold it in real life?
Actually, a human could hold it.
I mean, they could hold it, but if they were to fire it, it would be probably knock them down. Is that right?
It's a 7.62. It's...
Oh, really?
Well, actually, the M50, the later calibers, the gun was recalibrated after the war for 7.62 to be standard.
Okay. And that's the one that they took off the Jeep, right? And or whatever it was. There was I don't know much about this show, about the movie actually, but I do know that they took a minigun or something off of a vehicle.
Okay, that would be the M134A. That would be in Predator. That's what Jesse Ventura.
Okay, I got you. I got them mixed up. I apologize.
And that same gun, same exact gun, was used in Terminator 2.
Okay. Wow. The same prop?
Same exact prop.
Okay. Here, I thought Hollywood was a bunch of spendthrifts.
A lot of the iconic stuff tends to get recycled when possible. It's not always possible after the wear, tear, and abuse of a film.
Okay. Well, what do you have any other projects you're working on that might come up in the future?
I'm trying to finish wrapping up the Predator upgrade, try to get my costume more film accurate. I'm also going to try to do a life-size Stargate that has a certain amount of functionality to it that I might be able to bring around to cons. Build a life-size sentry gun that uses either face or motion tracking and will be constantly moving the entire time it's at the booth.
So you're working on a Predator costume. Is it life-size? Scale to the movie?
I wouldn't. It's scaled to me.
Scale to you. Okay. I didn't know if you maybe have some stilts in there or.
The problem with stilts is it makes it very dangerous if you're on a slope or just even walking around because you're constantly bumping into people at the conventions.
Right. Well, do you think you might use it for other things other than the conventions, like some appearances in Knoxville?
Well, if anyone asks, I'll attempt to try and honor the request.
Okay. Maybe some birthday parties.
Well, it might scare some kids.
What do you mean, kids? I might like to have it at my birthday party.
Okay.
Who knows? I could see you at main event, doing some bowling,
Yeah.
Being on the, maybe some tightrope, what do they call it? Dang it. Where they walk on the ropes. Tightrope. Anyway, just.
Yeah. A lot of the Predator the more iconic form would be a lot of parkour and a lot of rope work.
Oh, really? So that would be kind of true to form then?
Yeah.
If you were up there on the zip line. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was argued they came from a high-gravity forest planet. That's why he was so big and large.
Okay. Well, then, I think we're going to break, though.
Yeah.
And more to come after this.
Talk Radio 92.3 and AM 760.
Okay. Welcome back, Richard.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Another question is, what got me into cosplay?
Right. That's actually what I was going to bring up. And you're from East Tennessee, right?
I was born in Michigan, but I've spent most all my life in the Knoxville area.
Okay.
My first costume was a Cobra Commander. That was very basic, with the centerpiece being a Cobra Commander mask and a shirt with the Cobra logo and pants that matched. As about 6 years ago, the mask was done by Pit Viper Studios. They're out of Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Okay. So you went to somebody that actually makes, I guess, Hollywood?
Yeah. Pit Viper Studios is renowned for their Cobra and G.I. Joe costumes. They have about 300 different variants that they offer for sale.
Oh, wow.
And they're fairly reasonable. And then in 2017, me and the wife were both in costume, and we had one of the Smoky Mountain Ghostbusters do a recommitment of our vows.
Okay.
I actually have that up.
So this was a guy dressed up as a Ghostbuster
Yeah.
And you two were dressed up as?
Predator and a Colonial Marine.
Okay. Colonial Marine, like?
The Marine from Aliens.
Oh, okay.
And that was pretty fun. And I actually uploaded that video to YouTube.
Right. I'll have to go check that out.
Yeah, and then around 4 years ago, once I got out of debt, I started cash flowing just about all my builds, and everything's slow because of that.
Okay. So if you had some more capital, you'd be doing a bit more performance art?
Yeah, pretty much. But time makes for perfection.
Sure. So you have any more characters in mind that you're looking to produce?
I got an Egon costume. My wife's got a Janine costume. I'll probably get that tricked out. I'll probably build a fully accurate proton pack.
Okay. So you just do this on your own, building the proton pack, the alien costume, just get pictures of what the costume looked like and replicate it?
I try to find the most movie-accurate pictures. In the case of the proton pack, gbfans.com sells just about all the parts to build your own from scratch.
Okay. So you buy the parts and assembly is required, right?
Pretty much.
All right.
A lot of this stuff is cast resin replicas because stuff from 40 years ago you can only find in a museum or you can't get.
Right. So, and I guess there's only a few companies out there that are making true replicas?
You got Hollywood Collectibles Group, HCG. They're the main one that does a lot of prop replicas. SD Studios does a lot of machined replicas, but you pay for those. So I got a little locator tube replica. It was almost about $300.
Okay.
And it was machined aluminum. Yeah, about the other costume I got is Joker and Harley, and I've been trying to find Harley costumes that work with my wife, Amanda.
Okay. Well, and you do presentations, not presentations, but you do appearances as the Joker, is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Do you charge a fee for that, or are you just something you love to do?
It's just something I love to do. At this point, it's only been conventions where I've shown up as a Joker. Someone were to ask, I would see what I could do to honor the request.
Okay. It just sounds like something you like to do a little bit of theater out in the public, huh?
Yeah, it's fun. As long as I can make someone laugh and brighten someone's day, I've won.
All right. See, I've got an idea. Valentine's Day is coming up, and what would be better than for the Predator to show up with the bouquet of roses at someone's place for their wife or girlfriend? Would you do something like that?
That would be an interesting thing to try. That would be one killer gift you would really be hunting for.
Ba-dum-boom. Well,
let's see. The Predator costume, I've been working on that for 4 years and counting. I've got about $2,000 tied up in it.
Okay. $2,000. Wow. So what, I would figure this would be a great business that you could actually start to recoup some of those funds and be able to present out in the public.
That's a great point. A lot of the problem folks have with that is they don't have enough capital set aside for their startup fund, and they commingle their funds with their personal account, and then.
Well, I'm talking about you personally. You could, like I said, you could show up with a bouquet of roses for somebody, charge a fee. Yeah. I think a big Predator fan would love to do that for his girlfriend or wife, and then you could parlay that into other characters. And
yeah, there's
just a thought, but I think we're coming up at the end of the program, if I'm not mistaken. So.
Yeah, but there's a lot of other cosplayers and cosplay groups here in Knoxville.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, thanks for inviting me to be on, and much success to you in the future.
Thank you, and thanks for being here.
Yes, sir.
All my friends are heathens, take it slow. Wait for them to ask you who you